All right, we now welcome on the host of Cougar Sports on ESPN960. It's Ben Criddle. Ben, how you doing?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So news broke a few hours ago. Bronco Mendenhall steps down at Virginia. Just give us your thoughts on that.
Oh man, shoot! I think it was a surprise to everybody, including the staff. I don't think anyone really had any idea whatsoever that Bronco was in a frame of mind where he would resign from his profession of over 30 years now. He's 55 years old. I'd say still, I wouldn't say young in the profession by any means, but you're seeing coaches coach into their 60s. I guess Urban's 57, I think 57, 58, and he's been burned out a few times, but he's kind of unique. But it's not, all that crazy to think that Bronco could coach for an additional 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's, and he looks young, like he still has like energy. Like you listen to his interviews and he's always on point. He's always on his game. He always has something to say. He's very clear and transparent about how he feels. And he's always willing to opine on all questions. It was a shocker. I had no idea that he would say, I guess that he would just, give up what his profession and to a certain extent his passion has been for a long time. He said in his media availability today in the Zoom call that, he looks at himself more as a teacher than a coach. And with that comes mentorship and I think architecting a program that builds up young men. I think he's always taken pride in that. He had a father figure and older brothers that were pivotal in his development, and having that experience is also on his ranch and being kind of a cowboy growing up and all the daily responsibilities of that, transitioned over to football, and he was a tremendous football player and all of those benefits, and he wanted to give back in that regard, and he found a passion in that and became very competent at that in architecting and building up young men. So it came as a surprise, I guess, number one, first and foremost. And then I started thinking about also my teammates, Jason Beck and Kelly Papinga, who were on the staff, and their families, and Coach, Nick Howell was a GA when I was there and worked really hard to get where he was at. And Coach 2J, got to know him from a media standpoint. All the coaches like Jason Anderson that are on the kind of more on the administrative side, like they're all impacted by a coach's resignation. No one saw it coming. No one could pivot. No one could adjust. So you had to be really proactive in hopefully your networking and building those networks. And to a certain extent, it's hard to network as well as you'd like to as a probably a white LDS male in the college football coaching world, which is very much a very competitive, good old boys club that is maybe not always those environments post practice aren't always maybe as congruent with your philosophies of how you want to live your life or who you want to hang out with or what you want to do in your free time. So my heart goes out to those men that are now essentially in a deep blue sea, this deep blue ocean of college football without a life vest, right? Like, are we going to have jobs? Are we going to find jobs? And I think there'll be jobs that open up. Will it be the jobs that they want necessarily? Or, I mean, we're getting into the coaching carousel. It's heating up and it's been heating up. And so maybe now is a good time. But those were my initial thoughts. And then I pondered and some of the quotes from Bronco about how he felt promptings and followed them or tried not to follow them first. And then, from, my spiritual perspective, I've been there before where you follow certain promptings and inspiration, and things turn out really well. And, sometimes you don't follow those things and things don't turn out as well as you thought they would turn out because you don't want to, for whatever reason, selfishly or because it's just something that you don't think is the right path at that time. So kudos to him. Not very many people can say no to like the responsibilities that he has and like the incentives that he has to stay and do what he has core competencies in. He's a specialist He's a very good college coach, and his record shows that at BYU, and the rebuilding efforts that he put forth at UVA show that. Just 2 years ago, he's in the Orange Bowl for love of Pete. Some people don't think he merited that, but he won his division and got to the Orange Bowl, so he was there. And so pretty impressive work what he's been able to accomplish there at UVA in Charlottesville. And but congratulations to him for following his heart and following those promptings. It's not always easy to do such, especially with so much responsibility on his shoulders.
So
and I was just going to ask.
Yeah,
go ahead, Trevor.
I have a couple. Do you have some theories of why? Did he maybe get called as a mission president? We don't know about yet.
Yeah,
every BYU fan's going to throw those out there. But
yeah, I mean, I don't think he's been called. I mean, I don't know. That's something that, I mean, it's a theory out there. There's, I was going through all the different possibilities of, there's always going to be pressure on coaches, and even Bronco, 6 years, and he's hovering around 500. The first season was like 2-10, but year over year he's gone to bowl games. And aside from the COVID season, he went like 5-5 that year. He probably would have gone to a bowl game if it would have been a traditional season. So he's a perennial bowl tripper at UVA, aside for that first year, and he's accomplished a lot. And what's changing, right? What's changed? Like, how has the dynamics changed? Does he feel empty? Does he not feel validated in his work? Like, all of us as human beings, every man, I believe, asks themselves that question, whether it's right now or in the future. Most of us feel like we're doing menial tasks, not doing what we're passionate about, not doing something that pays the bills well enough to help us accomplish our goals. Like, we're always searching for more, right? And I think what he's realized is, well, there's not going to be more that I'm going to accomplish or feel more validated by, even if I won a national championship at UVA. I'm putting words in his mouth, but like, I saw him after the 2009 season have this like look of like emptiness. And I believe at that time he went and I think this is on record, he went out to some sort of a conference with high level individuals and high like attaining people in business and in sports, and all of them were suffering from, hey, I've attained all these resources and success, and I still feel empty, right? And why is it that I still feel empty? And I got to enjoy the process now, and I got to be process oriented, and that's and so I think he experienced that, and BYU, I think there was something more than just it was more than football, right? And it's always been more than football. And even though we say that, like, I think he truly believes that. And most fans and donors don't want to hear that, but deep down, they also know that that's true, and they want their team to be the best, but also realize that there's truth in what he's saying. So I think he just got to the point where things are changing in college football. I think architecting football programs and building young men probably isn't as validating as it once was. And he's ready for his next challenge. He's ready for the next experience. We're experiential beings, Homo sapiens, right? We like variety. We like experiencing things. We're, to a certain extent, hedonistic, right? We want the pleasures of life. So we want to go on a vacation. We want to have freedom. We want to eat what we want to eat when we want to eat it. We want to experience life. And I look at Bronco as a very experiential person. Like, he was not a traditional LDS dude from what I've gathered. Like, he was different. He was always different. He's an introvert. He goes to snow. Kind of gets shunned by BYU, doesn't give him an offer, goes to Oregon State because Oregon State's on the schedule for BYU, beats BYU, does a snow angel in the middle of the 50, realizes, that was great, but like, what's next? Like, so we're experiential individuals. So I think he's looking for that next experience, not in a hedonistic way, but in a validating, accomplished, impactful way, while he has, at best, lived half of his life in this earthly realm, right? So hate to get philosophical and spiritual, but I think that may be, as I project having been a player of his and listening to him speak to the media, what, if I'm trying to connect dots, that may be something to do with it.
And in regards to the assistant coaches for UVA, do you foresee if the current, let's just say a couple of defensive guys on BYU staff now do go for other opportunities, promotions, et cetera, whatever it is, they decide to leave for whatever reason, do you see a couple of assistants getting calls, right? Could you see them getting calls from BYU to maybe join that staff?
I don't know. I think, as far as the relationships are concerned, so it's just because you're an LDS coach doesn't mean you necessarily have relationships with that head coach or that coordinator. Many times the coordinator is the one that will hire position coaches. Sometimes it's the head coach. It's all relationship based, and that's why I mentioned kind of a good old boys club and who you have connections with and where the trust is and where there's buy-in and where there's equity. Some of it's recruiting based. Like some people just want the best salesman to come in and recruit for them to a particular position group, and hopefully those recruits will pay dividends for the coordinator, and the coordinator is the one making those decisions, right? So I don't know. I look at their staff, and if we just take like the offense, or let's just take the defensive staff, because they seem to be the villains at BYU right now. All BYU fans want to do is talk about the defense and things, which is interesting because 5 out of the 6 years you can make an argument that defense has outperformed the offense under Kalani Sitake. So and I think they've done really well in the things that matter, right? Typically points per game, turnover margin. So in all like the times that BYU's been kind of like in the top 25, like 9-4 the first year, which they were kind of in and out, 2020, 2019 early on too, and then 2021, our turnover margin's been done really well. We've been ranked in the top 25, and also we've limited dynamic chunk yardage plays, explosive plays. So I think those 3 stats, along with, I would say there's one stat in particular about passer rating efficiency that's really important too. But I think the defense, let's say, just for argument's sake, let's say Ed Lamb gets a job elsewhere. Like, he deserves it. He's a really good coach. Like, philosophically, I understand where he's coming from with how he approaches things. He's one of the best special teams coordinators in the country. He's an associate head coach, so he's doing a lot of the day-to-day things that Kalani maybe doesn't have time for. And Elisha Tuiaki could go with him. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying it's a possibility because Ed deserves a job at the FBS level, whether that's Fresno State or Colorado State or Akron or whatever. I don't know all the different job openings right now. Florida Atlantic, I don't know, but he deserves that. So what would happen in that at that point? I think Kevin Clune would be your defense coordinator, who's your linebackers coach. That's my personal opinion. And then who would Kevin want to bring in as a D-line coach? Maybe Vic Soto. Who'd you bring in as assistant head coach and special teams coordinator? Maybe Kevin would be that assistant head coach, or maybe Aaron Roderick would become assistant head coach. But you would need, one more coach. I don't know. At least maybe two coaches. Maybe would Kelly Papinga be an option? Maybe. I think Kelly could be an option at BYU. BYU fans love Kelly Papinga. I love Kelly Papinga. He's a great recruiter. I mean, he's the guy that, you talk to Kyle Van Noy and Fred Warner and all those dudes that were coached and mentored by him. They all love Kelly Papinga. So, but does he have great relationships and trust with the current staff? That's to be determined. But I think there's an opportunity there, 100%. I would love to see Kelly return. I'd love to see Vic Soto return if that happens. But Vic may have a job still at USC because he's such a good recruiter and good developer of talent. So we'll see.
Let's transition to something totally different. I talk about this all the time. It's the weirdest thing. And you may have known, you've played at BYU and stuff like that. Why is BYU so bad at day games but just gets up for night games? Like, what is it? I like. There's
do you
something
have data
there.
points on this?
Trust me. Grant, am I wrong?
This is anecdotal, emotional experience over the last.
It's everything.
100% anecdotal.
It's statistical, everything.
Yeah, but
analytical.
I need stats. I need to be able to verify this because I don't know if BYU plays poorly in day games more so than night games. But I'm trying to recall.
So Boise State day game, Baylor day game. What other? Georgia Southern.
Half
a day game.
It was kind of half day game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll address it like this. I mean, in my opinion, your generation, and even my generation, we tend to stay up late and sleep in. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just talk about just our physiology. Right. So if you're, I think there is some good data on that supports and I'm not justifying this. I'm just saying me just speaking aloud, maybe BYU football players, that's what they do. And that's what they get used to. And they don't have morning practices anymore. I don't think when I was at BYU, we had a lot of morning lifts and things of that nature, but trying to justify why they don't perform as well. Maybe we're in the habit, and habits create a certain amount of positive and negative fruits in our lives that we perform better and we're more hydrated and we're more physiologically prepared mentally, physically to perform at a higher level with exactitude within our assignments. We have more mental clarity, and therefore we play better in the evening, or maybe it has nothing to do with it. I don't know. But
as a player, did you get up more for a night game? Obviously, I feel like a big night game is just is different than a big noon game.
No, it's not. I don't recall.
Really?
I don't recall night games being any more I think you got to realize over time you're kind of also desensitized when you play games. You just go and play. You may be more nervous if it's a nationally televised game, possibly, if there's more people, but I don't remember being any more nervous or getting up for more a game just because it was a night game. Maybe it was a bigger opponent. Maybe if it was on national TV, but I mean, you always have the, I mean, I always say you're incentivized during the week as a student athlete to focus on your sport rather than your academics, because there's going to be millions of people watching you, or at least 63,000 fans watching you at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. So where are you going to spend your time? There's a lot of accountability there. It's a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. It can be once you really put it into perspective. So, you never want to be the guy that loses your team the game. So I don't know, collectively as a team, I would look at more so the strength of schedule. I'd look at whether or not you're traveling east. If you're traveling east, that has something to do with it. And I'd look at more of the physiological factors and mental factors. I would say in a day game, you got to be more cognizant of everybody needs to get to bed earlier. Everyone's got to take a nap the day prior. There needs to be making sure that everyone's hydrated. That's my approach. Some people say Ben, that has nothing to do with anything, or they're just superstitious like you, saying, or I don't know what your theories are.
Oh, I'm superstitious.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Everyone's superstitious. And I'm not. I'm really not superstitious. I'm more of
So do you? So are you a jinx guy?
No, I mean everyone. No, I'm not a jinx guy either. No,
big jinx guy.
No, I'm not.
I guess the only reason.
No, I mean if you ask Tom Brady, I don't think is superstitious, but he's a routine guy. So routine is habits, right? So I'm all about being prepared and you shall not fear type of thing. The more prepared you are, the more reps you get in, the more desensitized you are to certain stimuli within a competition, the less rattled you're going to be. You create, Dr. Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist that I love listening to, talks about how you have anxiety or fear and things of that nature. Put yourself in anxiety, fear state over and over again, and you're going to be desensitized. You're I came out okay, right? So I don't believe in jinxes. I don't believe in superstitions. I believe like in a situation where one person is more prepared or even one person is more talented than the other in competition physically, they're going to be able to execute better than their competition is. But those are my thoughts. Like I don't get into the superstition. I look at other factors of performance rather than the intangible. No offense to you, Carl.
No. I'm an emotional dude. Like when I'm watching, let's say it's a BYU game, they're up 10 points. Let's say it's basketball. They're up 10 points.
Yeah.
3 minutes left. And I was like, oh, this game's over. Change the channel. That's a jinx. BYU loses. I blame that person.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. I get it. I respect, man. Like, yeah, I don't look at it that way, but I can appreciate it. You're a true sports fan.
And I guess one of the real reasons why we actually do talk about it is just because those day games, as we transfer to the Big 12, right? Those are going to be some of the best opportunities to highlight and showcase some of our premier, athletes on the team, such as Tyler Algier this year, right? So I know Pope's talked about it in kind of one of his favorite things about moving to the Big 12 was being able to showcase their team on more day games. Mm-hmm. And I do think it does hurt the opportunities for Heisman votes, obviously for Doak Walker, all these different things that people, especially on the East Coast where I'm at, people just aren't staying up for these super, super late games. So the real reason we talk about it so much is because we know transferring to the Big 12 and moving into that, it's going to be a necessity that these guys ball out on some of those, opportunities they have, against some of this Big 12 competition.
Yeah, no, I get it. Prime time, day games, more eyes are watching. And, I think if you're looking for awards, like I get it. Like if you're looking for PR and publicity, I get it. It helps. Like winning helps. Like, unfortunately, in this day and age, like, we're talking about college football playoff here, and so all of those awards and all that publicity can help you in AP polls and coaches polls and things of that nature and influence. Like, but the media doesn't determine national champions anymore. That ended probably in 1984 when BYU actually won due to a national championship by media, and then the oligopoly of college football said, hell to the no, this is never going to happen. They will never take our money. They will never take like our national championship away from us. Like, we will never let this happen again. We will not let media, a bunch of jock sniffing nerds that like to write about other athletes, you know what I mean? Like, that's how they view it, right? There's a bunch of Neanderthalic, dudes in football, like, we're not going to let that happen ever again, determine our national champion. Right. So, I'm just trying to simplify it for you, like from a general standpoint. So I get it. Like there's that media hype, but day games being showcased, it's going to be awesome. For me, get out there earlier, right? Get out there a day earlier. Like, to me, being a student athlete means going on field trips and learning and traveling. Like, that should be a part of the enriching experience. So if it costs a little extra money to house a football team, how much more money would it be? It's probably a lot. Like, it is a lot more, but if you want to win that game and you want those football players to be physiologically and mentally adapted to the environment, then get them out there a little bit earlier and make sure you control their environment, a structured environment. The more structured environment for a young man, the better, typically at the 18 to 24 year realm. Why? Because we're a bunch of dumb dudes that do stupid things. Like, that's what we do. And so, like, we're habitual line steppers, as Dave Chappelle says. That's what we like to do. Habitual line steppers. Or sorry, it was Charlie Murphy that said that. You guys probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But habitual line steppers. So, like, create an environment where they can thrive and make sure that they get out there a little bit earlier, maybe a day or sooner, especially if you're traveling to the East Coast. I mean, I know we're not going to be doing that as much in Big 12, but like, if you're traveling, get out there earlier and get adapted to the situation and see what the battlefield's going to be like. Kidding me? I mean, it's the gridiron, man. I know it's similar, right? All battlefields are similar in football, but like, make sure that you are familiar with your surroundings and what the environment's going to be like. You know what I mean? Be prepared and visualize and, if you're prepared, you shall not fear, and hopefully mentally and physically you're ready to go. That's my philosophy, but who knows? Well, who knows what'll happen?
Yeah, you mentioned going on a date early, but what happens if they miss John Bytheway's class?
Yeah, like I said, there's Zoom for that, right?
I'm just playing.
You can learn from anywhere these days, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about this. Who benefits more from the Big 12? I think they both benefit in their own ways and more. Who benefits more, men's basketball or football?
Well, right now, man, it's kind of even for me to a certain degree, just because you got Colin Chandler due to the Big 12, and you kind of got Kingsley Suamataia in the transfer portal due to the Big 12, and also just he wanted to come home. So, but you could have lost Kingsley to Utah, and BYU not been in the Big 12. So I kind of look at that as like a tipping point. So I think the low-hanging fruit answer is basketball, just because basketball in the Big 12 has been a top 5 conference, has been the top conference in the NCAA for the last 5 years. So I would say that Big 12 loses out on Texas and OU. OU hurts more than Texas, but like OU and Texas also matter from a financial standpoint. It would have been awesome had they stayed. So financially, Big 12 for basketball helps. Football, it helps too, and that helps the entire athletic department. But it would have been a whole lot better had Texas and OU stuck around. So I do think the Big 12 football conference, even though you add Cincy, who's in the college football playoff, and they're really good, UCF, really good. They've been really good, one of the best G5 programs in the country the last 10 years. Houston's been really good. They're 11-1 right now. It does look to be better with football without Texas and OU. But also I do look at the amount of money. You're essentially cutting your revenue in half. You're hoping that these schools individually make $20 million. But from a revenue generation standpoint for basketball, it's going to be really good. And they're playing in a really good conference. So I don't know, I go back and forth with it, as I did like a little chart of like the which team. We had like a poll a day that day when it all dropped, and I was like, who's going to benefit, which team will benefit most from this? And I leaned probably basketball, just because right now and what it's been just the best basketball conference. And so good luck to BYU basketball in competing there. I think that one of the better questions is who's going to be able to compete and win immediately. Is it football or basketball? Yeah, that's it. That's
a good question.
That's to me, I think it's going to be tough for both of them to get bowl eligible immediately. This is stuff, but I want to lean football in that regard, just slightly, just because I feel like the physical specimens that you can get for BYU football along the trenches can match the physicality and violence of most teams in college football, whereas BYU basketball athletically, it's going to be a little bit tougher to recruit those type of players. Like there's only so many Sean Bradleys that come through BYU, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And Jimmer was an outlier, but Danny Ainge and like that whole 80s crew, you look at those rosters, a lot of them made it to the NBA. Danny Ainge was a freak athlete, you know what I mean? So, but like those guys come around once every 2 decades, it seems like, where you have a freak transcendent player anyway. But yeah, I want to say football can compete sooner. So better for basketball I think they're going to benefit immediately, especially with maybe recruiting and stuff like that and prestige in the conference. And then football, I think, can compete better immediately, though.
The only reason I would say basketball is just because I believe in Mark Pope that much. I think he's the most underrated coach in college basketball, and I don't think it's close. And the number one thing you need in college basketball, there's 2 things: guard play and coaching. And I think BYU's got one. It just depends if a guy like Colin Chandler pan out.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. Colin Chandler's got a ways to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Got a ways to go. He's a really good player. Clay's good. He's a hard worker. They have a lot of guys coming back, from Mission soon, from Wasatch Academy, and other players. So, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Mark Pope can do and how long BYU can keep him.
Yeah, I agree with your takes too on that, Ben, especially when you're talking about, who's going to benefit and who's going to compete. I think if anything this year has shown us that the audition tape, basically, they can play with Power 5 football. And they've done that, pretty consistently this year. Now, again, Pac-12 is on a down year. It's very different than, I guess, some of that meat of the Big 12. But, I mean, looking at it, let's kind of go back to the defense, just because I kind of want to highlight that again. A lot of fans, especially what we hear just through Twitter is ridiculous, but what we hear through Twitter, everyone wants to kind of trash on the defense. What defense do you kind of foresee going into the Big 12? Like, what should fans expect in a Power 5 conference week in, week out, right? Like, what kind of expectations should they have?
I mean, I think the best thing to do would probably be like evaluate what Utah football did year over year prior to joining the Pac-12 and what they're doing now as a member of the Pac-12, right? So they went the last 4 years in the Mountain West Conference. They're really good those last 4 years. 13-0. So let's go 2007. 9-4, 13-0, 10-3, 10-3. Were those seasons, those last 4 seasons. That's similar to what BYU was doing 06 to 09, right? They had a down year in 2010. Well, in the Pac-12, first year 8-5, 5-7, 5-7, 9-4. So there was a little dip, right? As they're kind of there was a lot of close losses, physicality, they were adjusting. So then they went 9-4, 2014, 10-3, 2015. 9-4, 2016, 7-6 in 2017, 9-5, 11-3. In the COVID year, they went 3-2. This year, they're 9-3 with a top opportunity to go to the Rose Bowl. So, that's probably what you're going to see from BYU as well. My honest assessment is that's what you're going to see. You'll see a little dip. They're going to be hovering around. Hopefully, they get bowl eligible. It was great that Utah started off bowl eligible that year. They probably were recruiting fairly well coming out of the Mountain Wisconsin, but then, there's going to be depth issues. And I think the depth issues showcased themselves in 2012, 2013. And so that's where BYU will be at. They're going to be, I think they can be bowl eligible immediately when they come in. I don't know if they can win 9 games first year. I don't know if they can win 10 games first year. I wouldn't predict it, but then again, Kalani has done a really good job, but that's the expectation, I would say, from a win-loss standpoint. BYU is physical. Like anybody that plays BYU, anyone that watches BYU on film, like we have a culture. Like that culture is transmitted through football and athletics, man. Like you can see it. Like these kids come from homes where certain principles are taught, and it's hard work, diligence, patience, and it's about the grind. It's about being physically dominant. Like we take a lot of pride in that. It's like, you have mentally strong young men that are asked to do things that are hard. And so you ask them, they're coachable, and you can always ask more of them. So they're willing to lay their health on the line for their teammates and be very physical. So we're a physical team. We'll transition and be physical there too. But those Big 12 teams are also very physical, very talented, very, very good, but we'll be able to compete, no doubt.
So assuming guys like Jaron Hall and Tyler Algier stay, what should BYU fans' expectations be going into next season?
Well, I don't know if Tyler Algier is going to stay. So I wouldn't say.
Let's pretend he does, though. Best case scenario.
If he comes back, I don't know. I need to pull up the roster too and see, who's going to come back. Oh, we got Isaac Rex that's probably going to have to come back now. I feel bad for him and his ankle, and he's going to have that surgically repaired. I feel for his wife. They were going to get married this weekend, had to postpone that.
What about Matt Criddle?
I know. I think Matt's done. I don't know. I mean, you never know what can happen. I think he celebrated senior day, and Great kid, great athlete, and finally gotten an opportunity to play, and I think he's shown well. Really proud of him and his effort and things of that nature, and looking forward to see what's in store for him in years to come. But next year, if you can get maybe a transfer or two, or you have maybe a few weak spots. You have some good return missionaries coming back. Jaron's returning. If you want to fictitiously put out there that Tyler Allgeier's coming back and Puka, Samson's gone. Let's say Gunnar comes back. I mean, if everyone was to come back, then you're expecting, with the schedule that they have next season, a 10-win season again. So you have 3 consecutive double-digit win seasons if everybody's coming back. And you're really not losing, on defense, anyone that, I mean, you could have lost. Had Keenan Peely stayed healthy, he would have went to the NFL draft, and he would have been drafted probably 3rd round at least. Really good. So you got him coming back. Peyton Wilgar's probably coming back. Max Tooley's coming back. You don't really lose a whole lot on defense, and I think everyone's coming back because they have a COVID year too. So D'Lo, Malik's coming back. Caleb Hayes should be coming back. Keenan Ellis should be back by that time and healthy. So you'd expect a 10-win season if everyone came back. So that's the ideal situation. Everyone comes back. Everyone's happy. Everyone, you're going to go against an inferior, a slightly less potent strength of schedule, and you're winning 10 games again at least. That's what the expectation would be if everyone came back.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I can see it. The Oregon game's going to be a super tough one for sure. Playing Baylor again, I'm sure they're going to bring back a ton of people as well.
Yeah, I mean,
looking
Baylor's
back on the 2020 COVID season, and then, yeah, exactly. And looking at the 2020, season, kind of the flashy, tons of points. Number 2 overall pick was Zach Wilson, and then this year, 2021, where they're currently at 10 wins, but they're kind of more of a grinded out, 7 Power Fives. You've gone 6-1 against those Power Fives. In your opinion, what's more impressive? Having that 2020 COVID season, kind of the flashy points, 2nd overall pick, or more so this year with all those Power 5 wins?
I don't know. More impressive, I would say. I mean, the thing that I want to celebrate about 2020 is you were willing to do things that no one else was really willing to do, especially on the West Coast, and that takes a lot of courage. Granted, BYU is a private institution; they can operate the way that they want to. The way that BYU started the season and kind of dictated what they were going to do and how they're going to do it, and won at such a high level and created so much hype. It kind of reminded me of the old, the teams of old of BYU, right? And so, like, the media's loving them, especially because they were the only show in town west of the Mississippi, it seemed. And they rose in the rankings because of it. So, like, from a hype and like a margin of victory standpoint, and the 12 guys that went to the NFL, and I'd say, like, that is, to me, so unique, and you have to celebrate it for what it is. And a lot of credit to Tom Homo and the medical staff that kept the teams healthy and things of that nature. But I think you got to really celebrate that for what it was. It was very unique, and both were unique. I mean, this 2021 season has been remarkable in the way that you struggle through adversity, and you get through key injuries, and there's always a backup. The depth. The story is the depth of the year, right? Is the depth of this roster and the development of the BYU football team, and look, we give a lot of flack for the BYU defense, like subbing guys in and out and doing these line substitutions, and we've looked at that for like the last 5 years. But all of a sudden, those guys that were getting reps early on in 2018 or 2017, they're all playing a big role right now, and they were exposed at times. I remember, go back and watch that Utah game 2018. Go back and watch it.
Yep.
I'm serious. Like, Max Tooley, bro, like, struggled big time, got exposed. No one talks about it. Keenan Ellis got exposed. right? My little brother got exposed. Like you had all these guys that had to go out and play that game, and all of them, like we tend to target certain individuals because emotionally that's who we are, right, Carter? We get emotional, we point one finger at something because we're or a person that we don't like. But like we had a bunch of dudes on defense that just got exposed, man, and now they helped you beat USC, big time. Max Tooley, MVP of that game. My brother started that game and was third on the team in tackles and did his assignment really well, was not exposed whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I look at all of that and I'm very balanced in my approach. I mean, I watch a lot of film. I've watched a lot of football in my life, and I'm like, hey, that's what you get. So both of them need to be celebrated for different reasons. I look at 2020 as like super unique because it was like during a freaking pandemic when everybody wanted to shut down everything and literally cancel the entire season. And we're like, no, we ain't, we ain't going to do it. We ain't shutting things down. So I thought that was really, really cool. So that, to me, that was more impressive. That takes a lot of courage in the midst of like societal pressures. And like the health is at stake. So you got to do it the right way. So anyways, there's a lot to take in there. So I'd say 2020 for me was more impressive for a number of reasons. And Zach Wilson doesn't become the second overall draft pick unless we have that COVID season and we march forward with faith that we can get through it too. So, and Tom Holman did a phenomenal job. That's why he was the athletic director of the year.
So that's about all I have. Grant, do you have anything else?
No, man, just appreciate you taking the time Criddle, talking to the future for Big 12. It's always exciting to get your take on it. Just appreciate you taking the time, man. Seriously.
Yeah, no problem, man. Appreciate you guys. Keep doing what you do, and thanks for having me on. Yeah,
of course. Make sure to check into Cougar Sports on ESPN960. Anything else you want to plug?
No, man. No, it's just listen to the show, and you can, if you want to get triggered, you can always follow me on Twitter. So if you want to get pissed off about what I tweet about, at least
it's a good follow. It's a good follow, by the way.
Yeah. At least once a day, someone calls me an imbecile, or an idiot, or calls me a misogynist or racist or whatever, right? Like or stupid. Questions my intelligence. It's always fun, man. I love it.
And they have like a Ute logo in the bio. No big deal.
No, BYU fans too, man. It don't matter. Like, everyone gets triggered these days. So yeah. So give me a follow.
Yeah, of course. Hey, appreciate you coming on, and anything we can do for you, let me know.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Have a great one.